uh, Bharat as we know today, और भारत that has been for the longest time, और फिर ये जो interim period है जिसके अंदर it was rooted out और इसके civilization roots को काटा जा रहा था, was able to truncate it or stop this, for a considerable time, at least for some time, because 1990s के बाद you see that change happening very quickly, and 10 years on or less than 10 years on, you have Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji becoming the prime minister of the country, and in fact I think 3 या 4 बार वो बने, ultimately he 3 times he became ultimately become one, completed his one full term.
No, second time he completed.
Second time he completed. Or was it third time?
Second time.
Second time. Okay. So उस दौर में when he completed this entire term, where was the foundation or groundwork laid for what was to set forth in 2014 or after 2014?
It had begun to happen. See, once you come in power, a lot of things changes. A lot of things change. And when you stay in power, more things begin to change. Which is why we sometimes get a little frustrated with Modi we feel that he is not doing enough to sort of push a lot of civilizational agenda, freeing of temples, this, that, whatever, sending all these people back, the illegal immigrants, etc. But the point is that they are extremely focused on staying in power long enough that, systems change, a lot of things. Irreversible changes आने लगता है. Already बहुत सारा changes है जो irreversible है.
Hi, Namaskar. Welcome to another episode. I'm joined by my dear friend Abhijit Majumder, who's written this book called India's New Right, Powering the Current Wave of Nationalism and Civilizational Revival. Congratulations, Abhijit, for authoring this book. And essentially what you've done is brought together a change and documented it, documented that change that has been coming around for the last 10 years or so. And you've gladly, I'm happily surprised that you were able to interview so many people who have in some way contributed in this entire new narrative that is taking shape. Of course, let's just begin first by why do you think it was pressing to write this book? Not just from a historical point of view, that just document the entire fact and entire development or entire story of this journey. But other than that, because you've segmented and made sections and chapters in the book, sort of covering interviews from those people who have had an impact on topics which are not just timely but also of civilizational importance. So, how did this book happen? Why did this book happen for you?
First of all, thank you, Arjun, for having me on your show. I'm really honored to be here. The book, a book like this, I thought needed to be written because, and to be written by a journalist, not by somebody who sort of, talking about it only from their ideological point of view. But to document what is happening, to put up a mirror on what the changes that we have seen in the last, say, 10, 15, 20 years in India. And there is most certainly, even the most virulent critics of this trend will admit and accept that there has been a complete surge in nationalism, in a resurgence of civilizational values and ideas that were probably dormant for all this time, and a nation wanting to write its own story, not by its conquerors, not by its invaders, not by ideologies that have come from outside, but the nations need a people's need to tell their own story. So I, as a journalist, felt that it was important to capture this moment in the nation's life. 10, 15, 20 years is just a blink.
Not even that.
In
It's
the, it's a
civilizational.
not, I mean, it's not even that. It's just, but so much has been happening. The Overton window has been shifting so much that since we are in the middle of it, sometimes we don't even realize how much, how profound those changes have been, how remarkable, whether you like it, not like it, think it's good, bad, ugly. Irrespective of that, I thought that there was a need to just bring what what we call India's new right, look at it through the eyes of its protagonists, of this movement's protagonists. Many of them are extremely prominent people who we know about. We see their we come across their views on social media or media. But there are some who are working in the deep background. Some of whom could not even be named because of the nature of their work and how it would probably put them in danger. So we couldn't, and they're doing it selflessly without the expectation of any reward. Some remote corner of this country, nobody even knew that they existed, that they got up every morning, went about their jobs quietly. And this is not like a conversion mission or something like that. It's just connecting with people, connecting them with their roots.
The Sang's way of doing things.
Sanghs, yeah, the Sanghs. There are also people who are outside the immediate Sangh, ecosystem or at the periphery. But most of them, come from RSS has a tremendous contribution to this.
In fact, it's sort of given that framework, how to work for the civilizational cause voluntarily.
Yeah.
And everybody, and I say this because sort of I also belong to that same set of people. We know each other through circles for a really long time, and there have been so many of these people, but it's still a very small circle.
Yeah.
But the small circle has been able to make such an impact that many a times, there are many people on social media who belong to this, what you call the new right, who will also complain that enough is not done or enough patronage is not being given. Yet you would see that everybody is doing their jobs.
Yeah.
Everybody is so focused. So you'll find people who will be cribbing on social media कि भाई सरकार से support नहीं मिल रहा. Yet they won't leave.
They won't leave for money from the other side or what they don't believe in.
Yes. So even वो जो arena है, arena छोड़ के भी कोई नहीं जा रहा because the motivation to enter that arena was not monetary.
Yeah, it's a bigger cause.
It's a bigger cause.
Yeah.
And perhaps that is what connects a lot of us. In fact, I remember looking at 2014, which is why it becomes a very important inflection point in this, what you call in your book, the Kurukshetra of history writing. क्योंकि उससे पहले you knew that maximum you could do was sit behind or sit in the shadows and do a bit of pamphlet writing, write on blog posts, write social media posts. But after 2014,
or write books which will never be published by anybody worth his salt.
So would write would write blogs, and internet gave that space. But soon after 2014, there was, I remember that time very clearly. 2014 के end होते स्वराज्य came in, Indic Academy came in, India Foundation started giving shape to ideas conclave, and there were a bunch of these think tanks which had opened doors for new. They were looking for new researchers, new writers, new scholars. कि आइए बस just write. Let's do something about it. 10 years on, I think ऐसा नहीं है कि There might be complaints on social media and people who are social media stars कि the government has not done enough. But the government essentially, and I remember I talk about Vikram Sampath does Earth ना, तो अर्थ पे एक पैनल डिस्कशन था जिसके अंदर couple of us panelists were sitting, and I think beyond a point ना I got a little anxious to say it कि जो हम कर भी पा रहे हैं ना ये भी पैसे पॉसिबल नहीं था पहले, एंड ये पॉसिबिलिटी इस वजह से आई कि आपको छत्र छाया मिल गई. यू न्यू दैट एट द वेरी टॉप देयर इज अ लीडर सिटिंग who may not be giving full patronage to your work or may not be funding your work, but he's giving you a space, a comfort space जिसके अंदर you could talk about those things, you could bring your ideas forward. So that has essentially happened. Let's begin with talking about your journey now. How do you see, so we've understood 2014 के बाद ये चेंज आने लगा, but where is Abhijit coming from? And you've spent around 3 decades, if I'm right, in journalism, and that to English journalism, which was not very welcoming. And that, of course, you have to tell us a bit more about it. How was the space back in the day, and what do you see in 2014?
So I've been, I was right in the middle of mainstream English media. I was the editor of Midday, in my early 30s. Then I was the resident editor of Hindustan Times Delhi edition, Delhi NCR editions. Then I was editor of Mail Today. I was editor of Asianet News. I'm currently consulting editor for CNN News 18, and I have my startup. So my journey, and I come from a family where my father was a completely full-time member of the Naxal movement in Calcutta. So it was not a fashionable involvement. He was part of the Intel cell and all that.
You were not part of the, he was not an intelligentsia part of it. He was proper.
He was proper part of the
Naxal
movement. So, but he
so
has
not the covert urban Naxal.
No, he was a proper. He would do his bank job, and then he had the other life. I mean, it's probably because of my mother that he's still alive. She forced her to take promotions and get out of Calcutta. Otherwise, he would have been bumped off, most probably, back in the 70s. So I have a very sound grounding in leftist ideology, politics, etc. I'm English medium educated, and I was part of. I rose very quickly to the ranks in English media. I have all the qualities of being a absolutely brilliantly poised liptard. But
liptard is another term that we popularized.
So the absolutely number one liptard. But very early on, I started questioning certain things about the so-called secularism, so-called disdain for our own roots, culture, etc. While showcasing somebody like Mother Teresa as a great sort of harbinger of hope and charity and all that. I mean, that's a different discussion altogether. But I started questioning it, and much before Narendra Modi became the PM, and now almost the entire media has become Bhakt, or a very large part of it. But I ideologically saw the point. I mean, I could identify with a lot of things that these guys were talking about from much before 2014, and I would also, on my Twitter feed or elsewhere in the newsroom, I would make it I have never hid anything. I'm very transparent about my views. Every day my well-wishers would say, यार कल तेरा नौकरी जाएगा, so मत कर. You know.
But how were you doing it? Were you
I don't
writing?
know. I don't know. I was tweeting. I would, at
But
on.
tweeting came in late.
No, उसका पहले. I'm on Twitter from what 1990. नहीं 2000 sorry 2008 से 2008
And
9
prior
से.
to that,
Prior to that, तो we would newsroom में जितना वो होगा. But I was also learning about things. I was also unlearning.
yes.
I was.
I think Sanjeev talks about that. In early 1990s, many young people, young people back in the day, were seeing the Ram Rath Yatra movement and everything that was the churn that was happening in. And it took around a decade or more for these young men to find their own voice, to become a little more articulate, to have a firm understanding of what their views are. And essentially, it is around that same time, by the time they became a little more articulate, they found a medium of expression on the internet.
Yeah.
And is that the timeline that you're talking about?
Yeah. Internet was a great, very ironically, two things that really changed and work and became, tremendously powerful drivers of this movement. Both happened under Congress. One is, one is liberalization. When ordinary Indians started realizing that they are, not somebody to, even if you don't speak fluently in English, if you have not gone to St. Stephen's or, St. Xavier's or somewhere.
Starting of the Doon School.
Yeah, Doon School. You could just face the world and succeed. तो भाई इतना सालों से जो बताया गया है कि तुम्हारा जो तुम जैसे वो जीते हो सुपरस्टिशियस हो, तुमको मॉडर्न नहीं हो, लल्लू हो, कूल नहीं हो, तो देन इंडियन स्टार्टेड रियलाइजिंग कि क्या बात कर रही है. आई एम फाइन. ज़रूरी नहीं है वेस्टर्न एजुकेशन, आई मीन मॉडर्निटी के लिए. मॉडर्निटी तो वेस्ट में हाल ही में आया है 300-400 साल पहले. हम तो फॉर थाउजेंड्स ऑफ इयर्स वी हैव नोन दैट वी हैव कॉल्ड ज्योग्राफी भूगोल, अर्थ बीइंग राउंड. And so this was happening. That is one. And second, under Congress in 1995, internet was publicly launched on 15th August, I think. BSNL launched its internet service. Bas. Like opening the gates of Ram Mandir. It opened the gates of something that they did not see coming. It was like an ocean coming through your doors suddenly.
In 10 years of time, the entire country started writing and telling an alternate view. What was done for decades, वो dismantle होना start हो गया.
Communication became communication. It became two-way. Communication cannot be a one-way street. Na? It used to be a one-way street. जो भी लिख दिया कोई वो दिग्गज महारथियों ने बस. So that also became a huge pain point for them. कि how is somebody sitting somewhere, some corner of the country, कोई who's he or she to challenge my view? Democratization of information and communication, that was a death knell to
the status quo.
I mean, decolonization sped up because of
became a very
internet.
important catalyst.
Absolutely.
And I think Geo revolution also.
Geo even, I mean, hastened it even more. So all this was happening.
But do you think that, so because you were in the thick of things, you were part of the mainstream media, which is very much criticized on social media. Were there no writers at all who were trying to give an alternative point of view?
बहुत कम.
बहुत कम.
I mean, who would want to lose his or her job? You know, need nutcases like me, I guess. But there were people before me like Shopun Das Gupta, Kanchan Gupta, or Chandan Mitra, who had, who had done tremendous work despite being in journalism and mainstream journalism. They had.
And you've interviewed
started.
a bunch of these people. How do you think they were able to survive through all of that? Or were they at
No,
all?
they faced. I mean, they had to. Shabanda joined the party. Kanchanda was sacked because of his views from his job at one point of time. Chandan Mitra had his own newspaper, so he was unsackable. So, तो ये सब है, but then slowly
How
I
about
was.
in regional media?
Regional media was, I think, a little less, actually less colonized, and but even there, there was this whole very strong influence of the left, trade union, पत्रकार हो तो अभी भी ये रीजनल मीडिया में ये एक बहुत बड़ा प्रिटेंशन है कि आप पत्रकार है तो आपको माने इवन इफ यू आर अर्निंग lakhs of rupees a month and going around in luxury cars or something, you will present yourself कि भाई साहब मैं तो अच्छा पार्टी भी होता है क्या, ये दारू भी देते हैं क्या इधर, ये कॉकटेल वो भी होता है, ये तो ऐसा तो मुझे that kind of nonsense. तो दिखाने के लिए कि एकदम हम इससे जुड़े हुए हैं मिट्टी से देश की, तो वो सब ढोंग अभी भी है, बट
अब उसके टेकर्स कम है.
हाँ, टेकर्स, हाँ, एक सर्टन वो है, एक सर्टन अपील तो रहेगा ही ऑलवेज, बिकॉज द लेफ्ट इज इट्स मास्टर क्लास इन मार्केटिंग इटसेल्फ. Never in the world has such a terrible product been marketed so well. Such a totalitarian, completely brainless ideology, the source of most of the mass murders. I mean, apart from radical Islam, of course. Look at the stellar track record of the left socialist, so-called thing, from all the topmost mass murderers, Stalin, Lenin, Hitler, by the way, socialist, National Socialism, his party, Nazi, then Mao, Ceausescu, Pol Pot, everybody. In Cuba, we have, what we know, what even Che Guevara, the great so-called revolutionary. At some point, I used to wear him on my T-shirt and stuff like that. But he was an executioner. He was a complete misogynist. He took sadistic pleasure in executing people. तो ये सब.
But historically, why do you think then, even after independence, left का इतना बड़ा control कैसे रहा on mainstream?
तब तक तो academia में, see, left is unelectable across the world, भाई. China में भी, if you have a election today, left will probably not come back. Or the next election, it certainly won't come back. So then, I mean, the ideology which packages itself as, so compassionate, so pro-people, pro-poor, pro the underdog, why do they not have the courage to let the underdog, the poor, the dispossessed choose their own government, vote? क्यों आपको confidence नहीं होता है? Because they are unelectable. But what they have successfully captured are academic institutions, media, the mind basically.
So when did this begin to happen?
The predators of the mind, huh?
When did this begin to happen?
It started happening with the rise of Soviet Union, I would say, then China, and the communist movements in Europe, all across. So they used the book very. They used Communist Manifesto and the latter versions of. They used it very well in academia.
No, but in India, where did they find their,
India में तो they had there was a communist party which ruled in 3 states, Bengal, Kerala, and Tripura. Maharashtra, it was strong. Punjab, it had presence. But they had presence. But Congress, Nehru outsourced academics and media to the leftists, because he himself was inspired by Soviet Union and stuff. I mean, his economic philosophy was also very socialist and left and
as a consequence,
state control. As a consequence, India's economy, and as a consequence, India's academic institutions, India's media, and when you have control over education, you have control over a lot of other things, like media. Where do you think this whole the foot soldiers of Indian media came from? Where did people like us come from? Came from the colonial left colonial education. And left by that time had, to take on America, left had got in bed with Islam. Left and Islam cannot cohabit in the same physical space.
but
in the, where they are not there together, they make the best bedfellows. Because they're then fighting against, non-totalitarian, democratic, liberal in the right sense, systems and governments and all that. So China, the communists and Islamists cannot. Islamist kya? I mean, even a normal Muslim cannot cohabit. Similarly, in Syria or in Iraq or wherever, Iran, and there's tremendous persecution of leftists. तो रह नहीं सकता है उधर.
But strategically, India
strategically, wherever they're not in majority, they don't, one is not in majority, then they whether it's in India or in Europe or in America, they are the best of allies. Because left derives street power from Islam. Left has zero street power. And Islam derives intellectual credibility, hides behind the left for any semblance of intellectual credibility.
And this you're saying scenario across the board or in India only?
Across the world. Across the world. ये जो भी pro-Palestine वो हो रहा है, the intellectual fodder is coming from the left and the street fodder is coming from Islam.
What will they do when they've toppled the...
Well, the day they start inhabiting each other's physical space, one either as two equal powers or, one being in the majority, one being, and then, they will, whoever is stronger will kill the other.
Okay, so what we know so far is that in India, thanks to colonial mentality, education system, and the systems that our colonialists, not our, I mean the colonialists had sort of given permanence to, led ultimately to the rise of left wing gaining dominance over our intelligentsia and our academic spaces. Sometime later, they, or not just, and at the same time, simultaneously, they find political patronage from the Nehruvian Congress family.
Right.
That goes on for good 3-4 decades when the Ram Rath Yatra happens. And there's some sort of a resurgence, if not resurgence,
Certainly resurgence.
in the writing as well.
In the, yes, I mean, people were in writing, yes. Green shoots, yes. Sitaram Goel and others, they were writing. Yeah.
So, a resurgence happened during the
Girilal
early
Jain.
1990s. And in fact, that is an inflection point or the phase where India, Bharat, as we know today, or Bharat that has been for the longest time, और फिर ये जो interim period है जिसके अंदर it was rooted out और इसके civilization roots को काटा जा रहा था, was able to truncate it or stop this, for a considerable time, at least for some time, because 1990s के बाद you see that change happening very quickly, and 10 years on or less than 10 years on, you have Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji becoming the prime minister of the country, and in fact I think 3 या 4 बार वो बने, ultimately he 3 times he became ultimately become one, completed his one full term.
No, second time he completed.
Second time he completed. Or was it third time?
Second time.
Second time. Okay. So, उस दौर में, when he completed this entire term, was the foundation or groundwork laid for what was to set forth in 2014 or after 2014?
It had begun to happen. See, once you come in power, a lot of things changes. A lot of things change. And when you stay in power, more things begin to change. Which is why we sometimes get a little frustrated with Modi. We feel that he is not doing enough to sort of push a lot of civilizational agenda, freeing of temples, this, that, whatever, sending all these people back, the illegal immigrants, etc. But the point is that they are extremely focused on staying in power long enough that, systems change, a lot of things.
Shifts,
हाँ,
consequences.
irreversible changes आने लगता है. Already बहुत सारा changes है जो irreversible है. वो कांग्रेस अगर आ भी जाए या कोई कोalition आ जाए, आ तो जाएगा, कुछ change things they will try to reverse, but a lot of things cannot be
आज वोट देकर आए हो, शुभ शुभ बोलो.
नहीं पता नहीं, तब I think आप still has an edge. Let's see on the 8th क्या होता है. But anyway, that's
In fact,
separate.
आम आदमी पार्टी के बारे में भी अगर बात करें ना, so prior to 2014, I think 7-8 के अंदर इस देश की जो दशा थी या जिस दिशा में भी देश जा रहा था, was in tatters. If once to think about it, every month there was some big bomb blast happening across the country.
Yeah.
We were not a safe space internally, we were externally, our borders were not safe. For those 10 years, we could write, or at least historians, academics, or mainstream media, journalists, and so on and so forth would write reams of literature about how, glorious things were being done during that time, and repeated references of right to education or right to information and so on. A groundwork for which was already laid prior to that. But देश की जो स्थिति थी was not, the country was not in a safe space at all. And in that that scenario, corruption, when it was such a big issue, then this group comes in, and then group is hijacked by Arvind Kejriwal, and Kejriwal, swears by his children कि मैं सत्ता में कभी नहीं घुसूंगा, and here we have contesting again, and in fact posters across the Delhi were saying that Kejriwal फिर से आएंगे, not Atishi, who was the chief minister of the state. So it's, I think he's also a product of that mindset, the leftist mindset.
No. Kejriwal is meta ideology. He is beyond ideology. He has no ideology. He is.
Who's funding his agendas?
There have been several points of funding. To Ford Foundation, which is now believed to be deep state. I'm sure USAID, etc. also. But
OSF?
huh?
OSF, Open Society?
I'm sure, yeah. हो सकता है. I don't have evidence of that, but Ford Foundation definitely. And there are other people, I mean, individuals who must be. By the way, when India Against Corruption was happening, that movement, Sangh was also part of that movement, very much. Was I don't think with funds or something, but with cadre, the corruption, anti-corruption movement, Sangh was very part of. It supported a citizen uprising. And thank God that Kejriwal came to politics for many reasons. One is that, I would say it's a fantastic example of a political startup enterprise.
Do you think Prashant Kishore is learning something from him?
Prashant Kishore is trying to. I doubt whether he'll. If he succeeds, it's good. And probably that was Kejriwal's last democratic step, entering politics. After that, I don't think he has done anything that remotely which can be called democratic. He has been a complete out-and-out authoritarian. He has kicked out every single one of his senior colleagues unceremoniously. He, from what I hear, he listens to none. Just does.
Party of one.
As long as he is getting a vote, he will go to a mandir, do Hanuman Chalisa, he will wear skull cap, he will do whatever needs to be done.
In a way, drawing parallels to the entire.
He's completely ideological.
Good. So, in the book, so before we jump into 2014 and how, why do you call it right? Because I remember there was a debate going on back from 2014-17 till, the right and left terminologies are not perhaps the right.
अरे right पे थोड़ी ना किसी का वो है यार. I mean.
Why do you call it right?
Monopoly तो नहीं है यार, क्योंकि because what else do you then call it? See, it's not left. One can say it's the non-left. Now you cannot define something by what it is not.
Yeah.
And it has, it shares certain qualities. It is not, definitely it's not right in the Western sense. But it shares certain qualities, certain core values with the right there, which is nationalism, a strong sense of nationhood, nationalism.
Left also has the sense of nationalism. I mean, when Nazis called themselves, they started with socialism. And they became fiercely nationalist.
You are right there, but left is, whenever it's sort of.
It's a global agenda.
They also have a, very, very global
Islamist
agenda.
in that sense.
Very similar. I think communism is the fourth Abrahamic religion. So this. There is right in the sense of having deep respect for traditional values, tradition, reviving civilizational values, tradition, etc. So there are certain broad similarities, but there are many dissimilarities. Like we have no problem with issues like abortion and all that. We have sorted it out in the 70s, MTP, that the prerogative lies with the mother. If she feels she doesn't want to keep the baby for some reason, till a certain point of time, she is allowed to sort of do it. And that Indira Gandhi ke time se Modi has further liberalized that act. MTP Act. We have no problem with, gender. We have a very progressive transgender bill, transgender act, amendment.
And views on the queer community also. I think
Views on the queer community, we don't compartmentalize genders like, I am so and so trans, kya hota hai, cis, I mean, whatever,
Cisgender. Regender.
there's that, in the morning I'm one gender, evening I'm another gender, whatever, I'm, pansexual, pizza sexual, whatever. ऐसा नहीं होता है यार, जेंडर फ्लूइडिटी तो वी हैव फॉर एजेस. Shiv, the most macho godhead in the Indian pantheon, is also Ardhanarishwar. And gender is fluid within us. Can you say that you have all male qualities? So-called male qualities. You also have, we also have, I also have feminine qualities. A woman may have so-called masculine qualities. She doesn't have to cut off her breasts and, get a penis stitched if she is, feeling in a certain way. तो इसका एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी बहुत ज़्यादा है हमारे कल्चर में. लेफ्ट नोज नथिंग अबाउट नथिंग इन दिस. It just ये हल्ला करते हैं and whatever, but and the youngsters feel that left is one that sort of cushions it, destroys life of people. Look at America, puberty blockers for kids who are 11, 12 years old who don't even know what life is about. Gender surgeries for kids who are so young, and when they grow up, they may be feeling, if a male child, little child, feels like doing Kathakali, Bharatanatyam, this, that, we put them in that class. And we had, absolutely brilliant dancers like Birju Maharaj. And in the West, if something like that happens, the parents, the woke parents, idiots, will take that child to a doctor and make him or her undergo a surgery which cannot be reversed. Imagine how criminal that is.
The sheer criminality of it.
Criminality of it, sheer criminality of it.
Massive
Sometimes
proportions.
even if the parents don't want it, the system they had devised, thankfully Trump is reversing all that, but they had devised a system where the parents could be, would be completely overruled.
In fact, I remember recently an uncle of mine that Biden had really messed up the entire system to a different level.
Yeah.
The country was looking for Trump that, some system, if he's reversing all these decisions, he is taking a call for a lot of people who were not perhaps able to voice it out during Biden's time.
Yeah.
And they, the vote is, the massive numbers are a reflection of what they wanted for the country. I think people have similar views on Trudeau also.
Exactly. Absolutely.
What is the man has done?
I mean, Trudeau's whole preoccupation for the last few years, the economy is going to the dogs. And your preoccupation is, gender, whatever, positive discrimination for marginalized genders, this, that, are absolute nonsense. So.
Okay. So now coming back to 2014 now, what are the, so you've reflected in your book, you've started with, and this is I love the way you've named your chapters also, because the very name sort of in its way encapsulates what is perhaps going to be in the chapter. It's civilizational cyclone alert. Now, coming from the Bengali side of things, very,
I'm fun.
so what was happening? So tell us a bit about civilizational cyclone 2014.
2014 was a very important year in that, where the cyclone had started by that time. 2014.
As I'm reflecting now, whatever you're saying, now I'm getting goosebumps thinking about those times. So much has happened, and in these 10 years, and sometimes it feels that not much has happened, but then you see, boss, इतना
बहुत
कुछ
कुछ हो चुका
बहुत
है,
कुछ हो चुका है.
बहुत कुछ हो चुका है.
Because if Sai Deepak's book sells millions of copies, it's the next generation
Can
who is
you
reading
imagine?
that book.
Before, say 2010, Sai Deepak's book would first of all not be taken up by any publisher. Even if it had come, it would sink like a stone. Some 100 copies would be printed and dumped somewhere.
Matter of fact.
हाँ, तो कोई Sai Deepak would have not been in the scene. He would have been doing law somewhere quietly, or maybe gone into tech. The very bright guy.
Engineer.
Yeah. And so that cyclone had arrived in 2014.
There are many techies and engineers who held that view, by the way, that he'll do engineering, but then they found their passion and calling.
आनंद रंगनाथन बेचारा इतना रिसर्च करते रहता है, उसके बाद ये सब भी करता है. He would have, such a complete rock star. But there is a thing about this whole technical, rational brain of the nation being at work in this. A lot of people came from STEM. Not I. I'm from English literature background. I'm complete again.
But before we go into talk about different characters and different people who've sort of been part of this movement, आप कैसे बच गए?
हाँ,
आप कैसे बच गए?
नहीं, मैं बच गया क्योंकि बच तो नहीं गया, मैं तो काफी देर तक I had a serious unlearning process. I don't know what made me go through it, because I've paid a very, very high price also for that. And I keep, for my views, right through, even when I was editor, etc. I mean, professionally, it damaged me tremendously. I was probably the only editor in India for whom official letter went from a CM's office to the owner of that newspaper, saying, please sack your editor, Abhijit. This was from, guess who?
You tell me.
From Arvind Kejriwal's office.
Really?
To Arun Puri in India Today. And this was also widely reported at that point of time, because there was some tweet, and this Chandan, क्या नाम था वो, the guy who was killed in the riots, Chandan Gupta. And 2016-17, I think. And everybody was talking about it, and I tweeted something, because there was channels had, even our channel had started reporting that there is another such death that has happened, and I just merely mentioned it. By the time I woke up in the morning, there were like several fake news, this, that, whatever. So the police clarified that no, the second one has not happened. So obviously and by the time, by the way, I think before I went to sleep, I said that, sorry, this has not happened, But then it became an issue. I think Anjanam Kashyap also had tweeted something. So Kejriwal actually sent an official letter. That Congress sends some 2 years ago, sends a legal notice for an article which is so innocuous कि उसको कैसे इन लोग पढ़ भी लिया. I'm very happy that somebody that they actually read it, or maybe they hadn't, because it just said that Rahul Gandhi is not connected to the ground. He's too Western, too deracinated. इसके लिए a legal notice from Congress to me here.
सच बोलने की सजा.
हाँ, क्या गजब यार. उसके बाद I wrote something, Udaynidhi Stalin's that infamous Sanatan Dharma rant that Sanatana Dharma should be exterminated, I wrote a piece in First Post saying this is, it's like calling for genocide, and how can he do this? But it's not surprising because he comes from the Periyar ideology, and Periyar. And then I went on to write about Periyar. About a few weeks later, I got a call from the where I'm consulting editor, from the office, saying that 4 Chennai cops have come looking for you in Noida. I said, acha. So they had come to sort of pick me up, arrest me, take me to Chennai or something for that article, okay. So then I had to get in touch with the legal team, get out of my house, stay somewhere else for the next 3-4 days. Then my lawyers responded. I had to go to Chennai twice and meet the cops and give them long explanations and declarations from where I have referenced the article. And within 3 months, the whole FIR was quashed.
Thank God.
But imagine the process becomes the punishment.
Absolutely. I'm surprised वो 3 महीने के अंदर निपट भी गया.
उसके बाद when this Calcutta Arjikar case was happening, the young doctor's rape and murder, I was tweeting, writing in CNN News 18 pieces. Suddenly one day my phone goes blank. I call Airtel and I recorded that message. So they said that the Calcutta police has asked us to block your mobile. I said, why? They said, no, they have given the reason that some fraudulent activity is going on from this mobile. So then there was so I posted on social media, and there were, a couple of channels did entire shows on that. Blogger after blogger in West Bengal said, what is this happening? How can a senior journalist's phone or anybody's phone just be without explanation, just be blocked? Phone number, everything is linked to it. Your Aadhaar, bank account, everything is linked to it. How can you sort of block it? Then after 24 hours, Airtel unblocked it.
So the guys who are usually politically making an agenda out of freedom of speech are the ones who are
the ones, yeah. They called Modi fascist and Yogi fascist, authoritarian and stuff like that. So it's all, all that is bullshit. And they have special love for me for some reason.
But what is this? The reason behind this is, of course, see, I believe that the new right found its voice on social media, which was not traditional or mainstream media. And there were very few voices in the mainstream media which were carrying the baton forward. So you'd see, like you said, Shopanda was there, and Kanchan Gupta ji was there. Yeah. And you'd see, and they've had incredible impact because be it Arun Shourie or anybody else, these are the men who were out there in public eye. They were sticking their neck out on an opposing ideology, or ideology which the country perhaps was ready for, but politically it would fail to find that expression. The precipitation point had not come. And that you saw in 2014 happening. 2014 also gave rise to what you write in the book also, sort of the new Sanghis in town. So, and I think in 2024 you'd see that the Sangh's ideology has penetrated so much, thankfully also in many ways, that there are many people out there who were, holding and publicly writing against the Sangh ideology, and all of the 2014 inflection point is crossed, and then they become, Sanghis. What do you say about that?
No, a lot of youngsters started, because of social media, they started realizing, and the new Sanghi deals with people who are in their 20s and who are, very much like the so-called cool Western, English educated Indians, and, wear jeans, have a ponytail or something, and party, sab kuch hai, but are they started delving into their own roots, culture, and became extremely vocal about it. Because when you're young, you're also a lot more fearless, a lot more sort of, you defend it a lot
Fiercely.
more fiercely, enthusiastically. You are extremely conversant with modern technology, gadgets, so you can give it back in their language, and on your own terms. So that's a very, very important change that has been taking place, and that there is no shame गर्व से बोलो हम हिंदू हैं। ये जो नारा जब जो रीतांबरा ने तभी लगाई थी राम जन्मभूमि के समय, तो आज के बच्चे बोल रहे हैं कि गर्व से बोलो हिंदू है। जो इनफैक्ट कॉलेजेस, आर्ट कॉलेजेस एक्सेट्रा, समटाइम्स इन द पार्टी मजाक से they play and dance to that Bajrang song, Bajrang, Bajrang. There is to those beats. So it's
वो नहीं, भारत का बच्चा बच्चा,
हाँ,
जय जय
भारत
श्री
का
राम।
बच्चा बच्चा, हाँ, जय जय श्री राम बोलेगा. So
But it gives goosebumps, huh?
it gives goosebumps. It's catchy, and why not? तो भारत का बच्चा बच्चा अगर जय श्री राम नहीं बोलेगा तो क्या
फिलिस्तीन का बोलेगा?
हाँ, फिलिस्तीन का बोलेगा कि आयरलैंड का बोलेगा, क्या पाकिस्तान का बोलेगा? तो बिल्कुल बोलेगा, क्यों नहीं बोलेगा? क्या प्रॉब्लम है उसमें?
In fact, I think Tejasvi Surya is also a reflection of it.
Yeah, Tejasvi is a very
2019, so 2014 to 19, he was very active on social media.
This is a very late millennial, almost early Gen Z, I would say. नहीं, हाँ, late millennial. तो हाँ, Tejasvi is a classic example.
He saw what was happening on social media, not happening on social media, he used social media to reflect or to write about his opinions and views. And Bangalore essentially was, in a way, a cultural hub also in that sense. A lot of conversations were happening, and conversations, in the same town, the conversations were happening on India's writing, technological prowess.
Right.
So वहाँ पर वो भी हो रहा है, and now this is happening, and he's reflecting, he's writing about his opinions and views, and in a way, 2019 के अंदर he also gets political success for it. So that becomes a good example. 2014-15 के अंदर ही ना Indic Academy also came up.
Yeah.
Now Indic Academy, Swarajya magazine, these bunch of investors who are motivated to the cause.
Harikiran Vadlamani, who I have featured in the book, what an amazing gentleman, what an amazing visionary intellect, fantastic man.
Without a doubt. I think it was when this was happening now. I remember 2014 end, I think Swarajya magazine started. हिंदू के अंदर एक वो आया था, एक इंटरव्यू, एंड उसके बाद हरिकिरण जी के थ्रू या किसी नेटवर्क के थ्रू, सो आई बिगैन राइटिंग फॉर स्वराज्य आल्सो बैक इन द डे, एंड लिखते वक्त इंडिक बुक क्लब बना, एंड हरिकिरण जी एनविजन की बुक्स भेजी जाएंगी, एंड देन इट टुक फॉर्म ऑफ इंडिक अकेडमी, एंड देन एसेंशली in some way, not entirely, but in some way, Indic Academy also became some sort of a, Ganga for the larger ecosystem, the new right that has become. Everybody, somewhere, would have received a book, would have become a part of this conversation, because back in 2014-15, nobody was ready, not many people were ready to fund these projects. I mean, दिल्ली के अंदर revolution नहीं हो रहा था.
Exactly.
ना books पढ़ पा रहे थे आप, ना आप social media पे कुछ, you would write, social media के अंदर, because civilization topics पे आप लिख पाओगे, but उसको patronage politically मिल रही थी, but the ecosystem was not taking shape here. The ecosystem was taking shape elsewhere. Bangalore became an important hub for that matter. And people, in fact, 2014 se pehle, when the entire movement to bring Prime Minister Modi to power was happening, many people from across the world, Singapore, say, US, say, many people had converged, and they were more accepting of this idea कि एक नया, new right should take, should take shape. And all these people sort of started galvanizing around, certain spaces, certain institutions. India Foundation also, for that matter, is an important example.
Yeah.
Because the Ideas Conclave, I think I first met you at Ideas Conclave Bundi.
हाँ.
कि Ideas Conclave के अंदर the entire who could be, who are or who could be, who've done something metal, they were all converging in one place.
Correct.
I think 2016-17 में था ना, when Vikram also did with Indic Academy this Ideas Festival.
Right.
And Ideas Festival के अंदर, apart from political expression, you see that conversation happening on civilizational topics also for
Right.
an entire day. Because the modern generation which is speaking, sort of the language that we are speaking, अंग्रेजी के अंदर बात कर रहे हैं, उनको आप ये topics के बारे में कैसे समझाओगे? Who have been decolonized to this far an extent कि उनको पता नहीं है, they don't think it's cool to have a tilak on your forehead.
Right. Right.
So I think it was Professor कपिल कपूर ना, जिन्होंने एक said in an interview कि बाबू होते थे दिल्ली के अंदर, वो टीका लगाते थे, बोलते थे आराम से लगाना, और वो फिर निकल के झाड़ के फिर ऑफिस जाया करते थे. That was the background that in 2014 the civilizational, वो inflection point क्यों बना है, क्योंकि उससे पहले situation ऐसी थी. Now moving on, so this sort of writing was happening, and then you see a bunch of people who are doing their things. Do you think that in a certain way, क्योंकि ये एक argument usually throw की जाती है न्यू राइट पे या राइट विंग पे कि भाई इंटेलिजेंसिया के लिए या इंटेलेक्चुअल मेटल के लिए और एकेडमिक मेटल वाले लोग नहीं हैं इनके पास. डू यू थिंक दैट्स फेयर?
And they should visit a bookstore in, at the airport or anywhere. अभी देख ले.
भरा हुआ है.
हाँ. कितना percentage निकाल ले. Privately, take a publisher, sit for a couple of drinks with a publisher, ask him which books are selling, which books aren't. So, you only through tremendous amount of persecution, discrimination, systemic discrimination they had achieved. They had managed to keep the so-called dharmics index, the right, out of, the simple thing that people on this side are backed with such an enormous archive of knowledge going back thousands of years कि you cannot match it, bhai. You cannot match it with a few Marxian texts, Marxist texts, or Hegel, or anybody later on, Marcuse. It cannot, it doesn't, we don't need that. I mean, there is enough, and not just in the past. The vision of the future is a lot more in cohesion with today's ideas of environmental protection. What we have got in Virasat as legacy is absolutely, it fits into science, it embraces AI, it embraces environmental concerns and, conservation. It embraces, stuff like gender in the most wonderful ways. So intellectually, I think there is, as long as the dog is not tied and kept in a small dark room, you cannot under leash, you cannot sort of pin it down.